Welcome back to the Boys of Motion podcast. I'm Andrew here with Brian, and today we're putting Tyler in the hot seat. He just ran marathon Petit Train du Nord, finishing in an awesome 3 hours and 29 minutes, squeaking under 3:30. And we're going to dive in to a full debrief, the strategy, the struggles, the lessons, and what he'd do different the next time.
And we're going to expand the scope of this episode a little bit to kind of your entire fall racing season since Ironman Ottawa, because you also ran the half marathon of Army Run in Ottawa. And the fans still want to know. We had some flack because we teased that race and then never actually debriefed on it. So we'll touch on that a little bit before we dive into the Marathon du Petit Train du Nord. This episode is really something where we're going to dive into kind of your racecraft, your strategy, and really get some lessons out of it. I'm super interested because I'm 2 weeks away as of the date of this recording, essentially, from my marathon at Toronto Waterfront. So if you're also training for a fall marathon, it's good that Tyler ran this because he's going to teach us all about it.
Well, to tease you a little bit more on your marathon in 2 weeks, let's just hope the trifecta doesn't get completed and we don't get a triple bonk. That's all I say. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, this one definitely tested me, and the fall did test me after that summer Ironman, and the legs were just heavy and the motivation was at an all-time low, but we still got it done, and I can't wait to get us through this recap.
Love it. So I think we need to dive right into that battle, because I know we, as Brian mentioned, we got a little bit of flack for teasing that half. So can you tell us a little bit about that half you did leading up into Petit Train du Nord, the result, the epic battle that ensued, and just tell us how it went down?
Yeah, so I pulled up the splits here so I could go through some of them and the strategy behind that one. But I guess overall, the reason to do that race was actually because I didn't have any work and marathon paced workouts planned into my training plan, like after Ironman Ottawa and going into Petit Train du Nord. I wanted to get some speed in. So I told myself, hey, I'll use this half marathon kind of as a tune-up race. At the same time, use it though, not to try for a PR. First of all, because that race was crazy hilly, that course. But second of all, just to get the marathon pace under the legs, try out the new shoes, and also the battle between me and McDuff had to continue. So I had to kind of show him a little bit about the longer man sport. So yeah, it was a great day. The vibes were really high, and yeah, it was Nathan's first sanctioned half marathon. So I mean, he came out with this stellar performance, but I had to take it to him at the end.
That's incredible. And yeah, it's always fun to see the rivalries that start to happen with people who are in similar paces. We see something similar happening with like Jansen, Mike, and Mark, fellow Boy in Motion members. And it's just, I'm excited to see how that goes. So walk us through sort of like that moment where, so I guess, yeah, you took the battle. You won this. You won this battle. Maybe not the whole war against McDuff, but take us through that moment where you know he was cracked and you could just bounce off his dying spirit.
Yeah, so I mean, he's got me on the shorter game for now. I'm coming back with vengeance in the new season, and he knows that. But yeah, I guess I treated this as a marathon pace workout to start. So we came out, let's say, slower than, going all out for a half. So just looking at some of my splits, we were hitting, at the beginning we had the zoomies, so that doesn't count. But we hit a couple K at 425. Then we went down to just 445 to 450 for a good, I would say, actually, till about just after half, so up about 15K in, we were staying at that 450, let's call it average pace. And that's kind of what I was aiming for for my marathon. So that was kind of a good test for me. And there was a lot of ups and downs and rollers. So I think it was good to get the legs going for that. And Nathan, he stayed with me the whole way, my every step. Sometimes I would speed up a little and he would be like, whoa, boy, slow down. So I knew I had him on the fringe. And on some uphills, I'd test him a little bit, burn some of his matches that he didn't know he had to burn. And I would, speed up a bit. He'd kind of trail in behind me, come up the ridge, and we'd go back up and down these rollers. And I knew I was just taking a punch after the other, just doing a gut punch and a gut check to him. And I knew I had him in the at the tip of my hands there. But the 15 and 16K mark came around. I knew he was hurting a little bit, and I started to slowly increase that pace. We got over a couple big hills, and that's when I saw him fading a little bit. And I think at the 18K is when I kind of gave a little bit of a kick and went, actually 19, I'm looking now. At 19, I went down to 428 per kilometer. And I think that's when I lost him coming up. You guys are aware of that race course. It was basically the harder half of the Ottawa Marathon. So coming back up Sussex, up that death hill that you could kind of see over the overpasses, I kind of gave him that last kick there and looked back, and I couldn't see him anymore. So I was like, I'm in home free here. So going through 19 and 20, I think I just kept foot on the gas. And again, it was a hard course uphill near the end there. And actually the last kilometer with 11 meters elevation just in the last kilometer. And I kept on the gas and kind of had a good 3 or 4K of actually right near that sub 4.5 per kilometer. So it felt great going into there. And realistically, I only gained about a minute and a half on him. So again, he had a great race. Very impressed with his first sanctioned half marathon. And I know there's lots in the tank. And I think the most important thing is I hooked him. I think he's ready for another quick half marathon in the spring. So that's the most fun part of it.
I like the sound of that. You hooked him for another one, and it sounds like you hooked Big Mig on the running train as well, Miguel Vallet.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a big shout out there too. Miguel he said he's been doing runs here and there randomly, but has never run a half marathon. And I think he came in a couple minutes behind Nathan. So he stayed with us for about, I'd say, a third of the way. And then after that, he kind of kept the 5-minute pace until the end, and he held on to it. So I think I hooked him as well because he has been in chats with the boys and looking at doing some freaky activities with us next summer. So stay tuned for that as well.
Love it. That sounds so nice. Love when we can hook another boy into the endurance sports. You teased that you were testing out a new pair of shoes. Can you tell the people what were on your feet that made you go so speedy?
Yes, everybody wants to know the Vaporfly 3s, the BIM purple colorway, sorry. And yeah, they were speedy. I liked the feel of them. Oh yeah, get them in the shot. Mine are still in the cart. They're nice and dirty though, but yeah, get those in the shot. They are really nice. Narrow. They're known to be narrow. My feet were okay in them. They weren't too bad. For the half marathon, I'm going to say the full marathon, I have a bit of grief with them, but we could dig into that once we get into the marathon chats. But yeah, no, great shoe overall. I could feel that they won't last, let's say, as long as my typical marathon shoe, but I think everybody knows that and everybody expects that out of them. But yes, high performing. They kind of get you tipping off of the front. You're really jamming into that toe box. So you got to make sure they fit very well. And yeah, nice and speedy, ready for PRs and bonks for sure.
Well, that's really great. Just to close off this half marathon segment, it's a quote, and maybe I've said it on the pod before, but I think it's very fitting given what you did to Nathan McDuff during this race, which is a quote from a fighter, an MMA fighter, Khabib. And he said, "I take people into deep waters and they discover themselves." And I feel like you did that to McDuff during this race, but did that right back to you. So let's dive in to your recent race weekend. 3:29, so that's sub 3:30, as Andrew mentioned. How does that make you feel?
Feels great. I think it was, I don't know, I had good vibes going into it. I was excited to race it and just said, it is what it is. I did have a goal in mind. I guess we could just jump right into the goals. I did have that PR in sight, and on the day I felt good. Everything was kind of working to plan, and actually my splits were working out actually up until the 35K mark. I realized that going, I think for these paces, obviously it's very following a pace strategy is very specific. So you're on when you're on, and as soon as you get off of that train, it's very hard to get back. So I guess again, it just generally speaking, I think it went well. It was a very hot race, especially for this time of year. A lot of people. I think this would probably be it was the 8th edition, so I think they could probably see that this was the most DNFs probably that they got overall. They actually had to shut the race down for all the participants in the last two corrals basically because they ran out of hydration. So good race for a lot of people, but also a very bad race for a lot of people.
Yeah, so like what I want to relate this to, because of course we're going to market this episode to be listened to by people who attended the race weekend. So there's obviously a few things that we need to dive into. Temperature being one, lacking organization being two. But let's start from the start like we typically do. What was bib pickup like, and what was the energy like around there? Because I know nothing about where this was held.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I actually thought it was in a smaller town, let's call it, than what it was. All the pre-race activities and all the, let's call it, accommodations were set up to be at the finish line just for convenience for after the race, I think, in St. Jerome. So St. Jerome, I thought it was actually a smaller town than it was. It was actually a city, like bigger than, I'd say, it looked like St. Catharines. It was a big enough city just on the outskirts north of Montreal. It was a point to point race. So it was like logistics were actually a big factor in this race that I didn't realize were important. So like I said, everything was in St. Jerome, pre-race bib pickup. Everybody was at the local community center there. When I went, it wasn't too busy because I went on the Saturday and the people already raced the half marathon. So I think going Friday would have probably been a busier day. Logistics trying to park around the half marathon course was a bit tougher. Like I had to walk a mile from the parking to the bib pickup. So I decided not to do a shakeout run. Just the nice mile there, mile back was my shakeout. And I think which was a good play. Just nice speed walk back and forth. No lines. Everybody was very friendly, very well organized and easy to pick up everything. And then also they were really, actually, I felt very surprised. They were really strict with no one able to pick up your bib for you. Those were a couple of the strange things, I guess. But again, not really a big deal. You just got to follow it. No one's allowed to pick up your bib. You have to have your ID with you. No electronic copies of your ID. They were very clear on all the pre-race info and email packets. And then, yeah, you get a nice T-shirt, and you have well, I'm just trying to think also. Oh yeah, if you had a book a shuttle, you had that on your bib. Everything was very organized in that sense. So the corral was delineated also on your bib, and they were very strict with the start times for everybody. So they actually bib checked you going into the corrals, into the fenced off areas,
Okay.
and people didn't let you go out in an earlier corral. So that was very, very new to me. And I think it was tailored more towards faster runners because they market it as a very fast race. On their website, right at the top, they say 25% of people that run this race qualify for Boston. So I think it was very tailored to the faster runners. Now I'm kind of going into the race morning, but yeah, I think very tailored to faster runners. The vibe was less friendly, I think, as well, and more like we're here to do some work. Like the morning of was like not many people were talking. It was very different than the typical, let's say, Ottawa race weekend or Toronto even. It was like you were ready to work. It was interesting.
It sounds more like a big business meeting than, let's say, a town celebration like you might have at most city marathons.
Exactly. That's literally what it was. It was like we're here to do business. It was like 7:50. The race started at 8. The first corrals were going off at 8. 7:50 they were making announcements. They're like, if you're in corral 1 or 2, we need you out at the front. You got to get out here, get ready to go. And it was also unique in the sense that it was on it's basically a shared bike path, but let's call it a shared bike path like we see in Ottawa or whatever, but like double wide, let's say. So a bit wider, but not the width of a road. So it was very congested at the start, which made for, I guess now I'm happy for the slower times off the start, but I think it was for people might have been stressed that they were, kind of stuck behind a certain pacer, let's say, or stuck behind a group of people.
Now, before we jump into the race itself and how the day went, One thing I'm curious about is, and especially for people that are listening that are maybe thinking of PR races or races, destination races they might want to do, what was it that attracted you to do Petit Train du Nord in the first place? And why did you choose this as your fall marathon this year?
Yeah, great question. I think the one thing that attracted me to it was actually the colors and the race course itself. I heard was very beautiful. Obviously, you're running in the Laurentides with a point to point, so you don't see the same scenery twice. You go from, I'm just looking here, Val David, which is like half an hour south of Mont Tremblant, into Saint Jerome, which is like, and you see the hills, and it's the time of year, the colors. So I think that's what attracted me the most. And then also, of course, the nice net downhill. Couldn't say no to that. It was advertised as a speedier race. I'll take it because I was definitely undertrained for that marathon. I think if there was more hills, I would have been even more in shambles. But yeah, I think it was first the colors, then kind of the course elevation profile, and then I think, yeah, I think I would do that again if I was going for a big PR, I would say.
Nice. Yeah. Looking at the elevation, it definitely it gives slightly CIM vibes, which is a very popular West Coast race that's really popular getting OTQs, which is Olympic time qualifiers, where it's like very downhill at the beginning, but then a couple sneaky uphills, and like it looks like kind of from half to about like almost 30K. There is a gradual uphill there, so it does look like there is some kickback in all that downhill.
Yeah, exactly. So I was ticked because you're feeling great, obviously, at the beginning, like usual, and going into that speedy downhill section there from, let's say, from 7K all the way up to 15, really. We were flying. So I was trying to hold back a bit, but actually I was in the 440s and tapping into the 430s there in that section. I kind of knew I wanted to have that in the bank because I knew at some point I would slow down. But yeah, the after half and going into the 30K mark, when a lot of people hit that wall, some of those, like, they were just very gradual ups, obviously nothing crazy, but they did start chipping away at your legs, and you really had to make an effort to keep up that pace that you worked so hard to stay, I guess, disciplined on at the beginning, right? So it was kind of an interesting mix.
Yeah, but it is crazy, like seeing that race course. Like you talk about a little bit of elevation that kicks your butt, but I think it's what, minus 220 meters over the full course. So it is definitely a fast marathon, and oftentimes it is worth taking advantage of when the good times are rolling. Let the legs just, turn over nice and quick. So I feel like from a pace perspective, you race that really well at the start. What I do think caught up with you guys is right at that 21-kilometer mark. I'm looking at the temperature chart on Strava, the overlay, and it rapidly climbs from about 19 degrees at the halfway point to over 30 degrees. How did that feel?
Yeah, that was crazy, and that I think was the I would say, looking back at, let's call it, other races, that was the most I've ever felt that heat affect me later on in the race. Because like you said, I just, as soon as you did that, I did the overlay as well. And yeah, it was nice and cool throughout the first half, and we were in the shade. You had a nice little breeze on you, and I was like, okay, this is nice. Like, people are saying it's going to be a hot race, but like, I feel like we're already halfway there. It's feeling fine. And then the second half, so it was kind of a double whammy. The second half got a lot hotter, and there was no more tree coverage. So we were still in a tree path, but we were in direct sunlight for the second half.
That's brutal.
And it made it 10 times worse. And I did have sodium with me, and I took I calculated about 1,000 milligrams of sodium on the day, but it was not even close to enough. I think if I knew the heat actually was going to hit that hard, I would have taken more salt tablets with me, but I've only had 2 with me. I had one at the beginning, and I had a Morton 320 in my hands during the race. So it was definitely not enough. And that was the first time I've ever felt like verge of calf pulling up because of the dehydration and the lack of salt. So that was a very big learning curve for me, is don't underestimate that heat that's going to smack you. Because also another thing, like I was I was kind of joking around with the people we stayed with, Kyle and Jesse, and I was like, we, the Ironman was hotter on the day. Like it's fine. I'll be fine with less sodium. But no, it was not. It was very hard to do.
Yeah, I know we were joking around at the beginning. We were chatting, and I was comparing the Berlin race to this race and how similar the forecasts were. And it is kind of crazy how you train all through the summer. You do a bunch of heat adaptation. You think, it'll be at least cooler than my hottest day on race day, and it is. But it's still it hits hard when you're going at that effort level, and it's really hard to kind of prepare for that and work through it because the heat hits hard.
Yeah, it kicks you. And then I was like looking, I was kind of gut checking every 5 or so K to the heart rate as well. And the heart rate was staying nice and average along the first half and a bit. And then after that heat started hitting, it was climbing pretty quickly. So I had to watch out for the effort wise. And I think I've never seen so many people walk the last like 7 to 10K in a marathon. Like I was, of course, not in the fastest group, but I also was a lot quicker than most, let's call it most people, of course, behind me. But I've never seen so many people like go out way in front and come and like me passing them while they were walking on the back third. So it was, yeah, very, very eye opening.
Yeah, so the combination of the heat, like heat is one thing, sun is another. But then the fact that the organization was maybe lacking in a bit in that they didn't have enough at the aid stations. That can be quite frustrating when you're already like fully bonked. What was that like when you've got to your first aid station where maybe it was a little bit chaotic? And what kind of stories did you hear from people who were behind you?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I think the first aid station came, a couple K in. It was cold. I actually didn't take any water. I was like, and it was so constricted. And again, we were on that narrow path, and nobody has sprung out yet. So I was just like, I didn't take any water on that first one. But you could tell, so again, I was in Corral 3, so the second wave of people going out, and at the beginning for the first like 2/3, you couldn't really you didn't know that nobody knew there was a water shortage. So status quo, everybody taking water as usual, whatever, a couple cups here and there every aid station. Also, sidebar, I think aid stations, they didn't have enough of them, or maybe I was just used to the Ironman fully aided course. At every mile there's an aid station, but it was, I don't know, maybe you guys could comment on it. There was an aid station, I think, every 7 or so kilometers, and it felt like forever. And
Yeah,
also
that's a
with,
big gap. Like
yeah,
Toronto in 2 weeks is every 3K.
okay,
Yeah.
so it was a big gap. Yeah, it was like 5 to 7, I would say. And it was, when the heat kept rising, you just like, I was waiting for water, and I feel like I've never done that before. So that was a kind of weird as well. And especially the way obviously the course is made, it's mostly on a path. So there's only certain spots where people could spectate. So like I would say a lot of it was also, it was not spectator friendly. So there's not very many crowds. So you felt kind of alone in some spots if you're not running with someone. But yeah, I think the water situation, as we were getting near the end, you could tell that they were putting less water in the cups, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then the water started to get like, was room temperature or warm. I'm like, okay, this is a little weird. And then like near the end, I feel bad now looking back that people ran out of water. But near the end, there was a guy just had a big barrel and just handing out water bottles to people. I don't even know if he was a volunteer, but he had a massive barrel in the middle of the road, and he was just handing out water bottles. I took two, dumped one on my head, and then was drinking one. And then Kyle that came out about like he was, I forget his actual finish time, but let's say an hour after me, he said he saw like hundreds of water bottles on the floor, like half empty. He's like, what the heck happened here? He thought like an accident happened, but it was just, we had water, like we had abundance of water at the beginning, but obviously they ran out. So the I think the organization maybe in that sense was a little bit rough. Kind of reminded me, Andrew, of like Toronto, the May marathon is
Hmm.
kind of that disorganization vibe. for the later runners, unfortunately. But like in Toronto, again, I had no problems with water. Here, I technically had no problems with water, but I heard some horror stories of some people getting cut off at the 20-mile mark, the 32K, because they didn't have any more water at the aid station. So it did end up being a pretty scary situation for a lot of people, going into the mid 30s temperature wise and not having any water for those athletes that are, trying to finish their first marathon or obviously on the struggle bus just trying to survive. Yeah, it was tough for a lot of people.
Now, what I really want to know, going from that, is when in this race did it start becoming a scary situation for you, and what were those early signs that you were going full Bonkosaurus Rex mode?
Well, it was nice. Again, unlike an Ironman, I'm allowed my phone. I was giving you a play by play during the race, so I was like, "Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great." I'm pacing with the guy from Ottawa. We're following the pace band on my arm, like literally to a T. We have a minute in the bank, a minute, and then we're going minute in the bank, a minute and a half. We have 2 minutes in the bank. I'm like, we got this. We could literally walk the rest, and we've got this 325 in the bank. And then it starts going, like, I'm just looking at my paces and I'm obviously remembering, and you could probably see through the text. I'm saying less and less in my text, and I'm just saying, I think at about 30, I'm like, oh God, I'm friggin' bonking. So I think about the 30K mark, I remember I hit a mini bonk, and that's when, so I was pacing with the guy. We were literally matching step by step, and he could see me fading, and I see on the pace I was 5:04, so a good 10-15 seconds slower than previously. And he was like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just taking a gel." So I blamed it on the gel. I'm like, "Oh, I'm just taking a gel. I'm fine." But I was taking a gel, so I'm like, "Okay, maybe I just need some energy." Took the gel. I think I tried to muster some speed back up for the next couple K, but then I'm like, oh no, bonk incoming hard. And I dropped that pace by a good 20-30 seconds, just trying to hold on. And just to mention the guy beside me, I'm like, Chris, you do not have to wait for me. Go ahead if you feel good. And he kept going at the usual pace, but he also did end up bonking. But yeah, the Bonkosaurus Rex came at around the 30 to 32K mark for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I was getting full paragraphs,
Yeah.
videos, you talking about how nice the scenery was, passing pace bunnies. Oh, I love texting while running. And then I get it just past half. Next one was the tongue out video.
Yeah.
I'm bonking Bonkosaurus Rex.
That's it. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm done.
That video
Oh,
was
so good.
crazy. That video was so crazy. Regan was dying at it. So was I. It was hilarious.
I literally didn't know what else to do but to pull my phone out, and I was like, I gotta document this. I'm a Bonkosaurus Rex right now. And it was, yeah, I was starting to feel in shambles, and it was like, and actually I'm no word of a lie, this is gonna be cliche, but I had Kipchoge in my ear. That I actually, the night before it came up onto my reels on my phone, it was the reel of him saying, like, his montage of him saying, pain is a wonderful place. Once you get into that pain, just stay in it. And like
Yeah,
his
feel that
his
pain. It
yeah
is a
ex-
privilege.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So that was literally, that got in my head at 30. I'm like, okay, it's getting painful. This is good. I'm gonna keep going. So like, he actually, not cliche, he got me through that bonk zone.
I recently read the book What I Talk About When I Talk About Running from a recommendation from a fellow bimboy, the another Andrew, and at the end it talks about what he wants on his tombstone, and it says, information, and then writer and runner, and then at the bottom, at least he never walked. So my question to you is, at any point during the bonk, was there any points where both heels were hitting the ground at the same time?
Frig, that's a great question. And by the way, I like that quote. I only walk in Ironmans, baby. No, it came to my head because a lot of people were walking. It came into my mind, but I was like, if I walk, it's just gonna take longer. So I was just like, I gotta keep running.
No, yeah, I mean, I feel that. This past marathon was the first time I even had those thoughts.
That's
And
freaky.
then I was like, I can't walk, so I didn't. And then I read this book and I read that quote and I was like, I want it on my tombstone too. So
That's sick. At least I didn't walk. I mean, I can't say that on my tombstone because I've walked a lot of miles, but yeah, I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm in shambles, but I could run a 5:30. I could run this home in like at a 5:30 pace. So I was saying like worst case Ontario, that's all I'm going to do, even though I'm in Quebec. So I actually did not get lower than, I did not creep into the 5:30. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that bonk recovery, to be honest, because looking, let's call it more in depth on the final 5K, you could see I was, 5:24, 5:21, slightly sped up a little bit, and then got into that sub 5 zone on that last kilometer. So I said, you know what? I got to get to it, and I actually passed a lot of people in that final stretch there. So it felt okay.
Yeah, that's an emotional roller coaster in those last, yeah, 5 to 10K. That's cool. So you crossed the finish line. What are those post race feelings like, and what was your recovery plan?
Yeah, I guess the happiness of just finishing, I think, was number one. I was like, thank God this is over. Of course, the training wasn't optimal. Let's say like between two major races, it was kind of tough to get that motivation to do those long miles. And I think getting more miles in would have just been a more enjoyable race near the end. So I think those are more so the feelings getting through my head. There was just, if I put more miles in, it probably would have been in a more enjoyable 7K at the end. I was happy to be done. I was a heel stomper because my heels were on fire, and I was trying to manage that calf pulling up.
A lot of
For the
downhill too, right?
Yeah,
Which hits the heels.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very downhill heavy, of course, race, and the heels and the calves were really sore. I was surprised that the quads weren't as sore, but I really had to manage that calf semi pulling up almost every step I was taking by the end of it. So I was just really managing that. Nice cold beverage though helped everything. A nice ice cold water before I knew there was no more water was also good. And then I just waited at the finish line for a few hours for some friends. So it was nice to feel, let's say, the first one done, but also nice to be on that recovery right away. Water, electrolytes, a nice cold beverage, and then yeah, just spectating and waiting for the others to cross like zombies.
very nice. I have a couple questions that I want to get some answers out of you. And when, not if, you go for that coveted BQ, do you think it is better to go for a flat and fast course or a downhill course like this? What do you think is more ideal?
Let's say I've done a bit of both. I've been around now. I've done that hilly race in Ottawa. I've done a flat and fast marathon. I want to say road because this one was a downhill path and mostly gravel. I didn't know that this race was mostly gravel. Really helped, I think, on the quad stomp, so did not hurt the quads as much. But again, destroyed my calves and also maybe a bit of slippage when you're on that fine gravel, which I don't know if it was good or bad. But my answer to that question would be the flat and fast. I think the downhill is a little too much, too aggressive maybe, and also just those slight uphills, you feel like you're being stopped by a train. Like you're so used to leaning forward, you could see ahead of you because it was a pretty straight shot kind of race, no twists and turns. So you could see, you're going down for kilometers at a time. So you're kind of in that zone, you're feeling it. So as soon as you come up a little bit, or even crossing roads, like the little hump of the road, you think you're like climbing Mount Everest. So I think just the flat, keep it simple, flat race all day long. I think for that coveted BQ attempt eventually with an actual marathon block, and a couple libs of shreddage needed, I think a flat will be good.
Now I have one more question, and this one is probably the most pressing question. I don't think me or our fans have ever seen you with something not Ironman branded on your body. And I noticed you were wearing a Barbados cap and not an M dot in sight. Why is that? And do you think it affected your performance?
See, that is a great question. I knew it was going to come up, and I say very, very tough to do, but I've tried very hard to not do any Ironman branded apparel. I was trying to go incognito mode, except for my calf. So I did, I just did a Lululemon, nothing on it, shirt, though my patented Lululemon shorts that I did wear during the Ironman race, but not branded. And then yeah, that nice Barbados hat. So the the intent behind that was I actually wanted it to be, maybe I am superstitious as a goalie in hockey. I've always was superstitious, and I think I take that a little bit into the sport of running. So I said, you know what? I've never done a marathon without any of that gear, so I'm going to try a fresh start, and maybe that Barbados hat would have been my lucky hat from now on, but I'll have to try to get a different hat. So yeah, I think the whole intent there was just trying something new, trying not to boast too much in case I really did hit the bonk wall pretty bad. People passing me with me titted up to the nines with Ironman branded apparel. So I just said no chance. We're gonna try something new.
That's hilarious. What a what a great answer. So I know typically post marathon there's always something going on with the boys that you're running with the with the whole crew. I'm not sure, was it only boys in motion, or were there some girls in motion there as well?
Yeah, there was a pretty big crew actually. So I'll just hand out some shout
Yeah,
outs.
hand out some shout outs and let us know what you all did after the race.
Yeah, so we had B and John there as well, the power couple, the power marathon couple
Right.
there.
Yes.
They ran the race. Kyle and Jesse, big performances by both of them. It was actually Jesse's first marathon, and she almost got that finish. Unfortunately, she was one of the souls stuck behind that bonk train, and they actually picked her up on a shuttle. She was telling me they were actually being like not aggressive as in like hurting people, but they were not letting people pass. And she couldn't. I was on the phone with her. I'm like, just go by the volunteers and keep running. And she's like, they're not letting me. Like they were not letting people pass. So unfortunate to her, but she was a very good sport and got through 36K. And that just means she has to do it again. So I mean I think she'll come out for vengeance and have a really good marathon next time. And then we also had Hussein, which had a crazy time. He came fourth in his age group with a 251. So I think that was a really well executed race by him. And then we also I ran with Chris, a fellow Ottawa crew member from the Mike Osborne Try guys. Yeah, so he ran a PR 328 right before me came in. And yeah, it was really good to run with another person. John did join us for the first few K and then just dropped off because he thought that the pace was a little too hot. And yeah, we were supposed to all have a barbecue after, but we were all in so much shambles that we all just split on our own ways. And then we had a Airbnb with Kyle and Jesse, so we went back there, just ordered pizza and chilled. But yeah, the barbecue did go to a failure because we were just all in shambles.
Yeah, I'm not surprised given those conditions. It didn't sound like the kind where you're all coming across this line celebrating, ready to crack open a beer when you're that dehydrated and just like feel like total trash. Sometimes the best thing is just to turtle up with a blanket and yeah, just wait till the evening.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a pizza, hung out. There was a hot tub at the Airbnb, so it was real nice. Had a couple beverages in the hot tub, and yeah, just chilled. It was much needed. And yeah, again, logistics was a big thing there. So we were all our Airbnbs were about like 45 minutes apart, so it was kind of tough logistically. If we can't just go over for a quick drink or a quick barbecue. It's quite a drive away from each place. So it worked out to be fine. But yeah, in note to self, when we're all in the major bonk zone, not good to make plans beforehand.
As on the topic of Jesse and getting pulled off the course, has there been any communication as far as, entry into the race next year or anything like that to those people that were forced to not finish the marathon?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it is well deserved. I think they'll get a lot of, let's call it, the race organizers are going to get a lot of flack if they don't do anything for the racers, because there was a lot of unhappy people. But no word yet. They set out a statement just saying, they didn't even They didn't mention the lack of water, which is also interesting. They mentioned just the heat. They said due to the rising temperatures and the unsafe race conditions, they had to pull people. So yeah, still waiting on that final verdict if they're going to get any sort of compensation or race entry or discount at least to next year's event. But yeah, nothing yet.
Yeah, that's so crazy because like Ironman's other races are happening all summer long, and Ironman is like a full day event, and those went just fine. So it's definitely something was not communicated, and all week that forecast was looking like that. So you have to prepare for something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think the frustration came. It's like, hey, you knew this was going to happen. Have contingency something to help that situation if it ever were to happen, and it did. And I've never seen so many people get stretchered off. And also maybe the way they did it too is they had the finishing chute and then they had a chute for medical right beside. So you see these quads coming back and forth with people laying on stretchers, like coming through the medical side, and people trying to finish at the same spot. Like it was crazy, and like you're just trying to ignore these people, like laying on a gurney, and you're just like trying to finish your race. You're like, holy shit! And then I saw a lady with the Brownlee legs right at the finish, and I called her. I called the medical for her. I was like pointing. I'm like, she needs medical because she was doing the Brownlee. Her legs were like this. And I'm like, she needs medical. And then a guy goes, no, she's fine. I'm like, no, she's not. She's about to hit the deck. And then I just kept running because I didn't want to see her hit the deck.
That's absolutely bonkers that this is going on at like a pretty well-known race in Canada, just given the fact that it's so fast that there's this kind of chaos that's happening as well.
Yeah,
It keeps
like I
you
said, I've never
entertained in
seen
the
that
bonk
many people.
zone, right? When
Oh,
because you're also in the bonk zone, you just got two stilts that won't bend, so you can keep moving forward, but you got some
that
entertainment.
that's why I was going faster. I'm like, I gotta pass these people, or I'm gonna see them pass out, and I'm gonna pass out as well. Like I'm like, frig this, I gotta keep going. So yeah, I've never seen so many people requiring medical. It looked like a war zone out there, to be honest.
What's even better is that we're paying to go to the bonk zone. That woman paid to get the Brownlee the Brownlee spaghetti legs, and we'll probably sign up for another race happily and shill out more dollars because it's so nice.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, realistically, she brought her body and her legs to the max. I don't even know how that's possible. So I'm pretty, I guess, pretty grateful I didn't get the Brownlee spaghetti legs, but also like pretty amazed how people could just push themselves to that limit and stay in that limit for so long to get in that situation. Obviously, scary situation, but yeah, it's crazy to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so before we kind of transition to basically end the episode at this point in the timing, I've done this with other people, kind of like a wrap your day up kind of thing, which is rosebud and thorn. And I want to hear this about your race. What was the best part, your rose? What was the worst part, your thorn? And then what are you looking forward to in either your next training block or your next race?
Frig, that's nice. I got to think about that one. The rose, I would say for sure, was the location and the course views. Amazing, 10 out of 10. I actually wish I recorded more. I tried to record some spots, but yeah, I knew I had actually a run to do, so I couldn't just lollygag the whole time.
The
Um,
fact that the fact that you were on your phone that like even that much was bonkers to me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, who is this all juicy doing all these recordings and videos? And then I
oh
see
no, that
you
was
licking your lips. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's gone mad. Clearly bonked.
yeah, that was when I started having zero filter. I was like, frig, I don't know what else to do. Just lick the stash, baby. But yeah, it was the views were nice. I think the rose was really the location. I'm a sucker for a good view, some mountains and some colors. Sign me up any day of the week, really. And that was actually what I was looking the most forward to as well. A lot different than a road city marathon for sure. So I'm gonna say that's my rose. The thorn, I think, was just I've never felt that close, I think, to cramping up in my legs. So I think the thorn was just that, let's call it hesitancy of that cramping happening, and like the reason I think that was the limiter of that I couldn't push because I just didn't want to cramp and pull up. So maybe and of course the eminent bonk. I was really focused on trying not to bonk, and I actually on my pace band, my total plan was to negative split. And so I really tried hard to negative split. So that would be the thorn, is the non-negative split freaking bonk zone. And I knew it was coming. I was just like trying to pull it off so
Why would
hard.
you try to negative split on a course that has a mega downhill in the first half? That's a madman.
Yeah, literally like 90% of the elevation drop happens in the first 20K.
Well, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna save my effort, and then I'm gonna friggin' pop off and get the zoomies. But of course, it did not work. I think I texted the guys. I think I was 141 first half, 147 or 48 second half. So not a negative split, but 6 or 7 minutes off. So not too bad. I guess let's just say I've done worse. But yeah, that would be my thorn, is that friggin' cursed. I put it on my Strava feed as well. Cursed by the bonk again. I'll be back. So yeah, and then that brings me to the bud. I think I will have a nice little bit of downtime from that structured training block, which I think is needed. But I can't wait to get back at it. What's funny is, the motivation was at an all-time low. But again, now that I've done it, I want to get better. And again, I want to get trapped into that same zone, let's call it, but not bonk. So I think I'm a sucker for a race. And I think the bud is to really try to improve on that race strategy, let's call it, and closing out a marathon is I think the lessons learned here, but without a marathon on the schedule yet for 2026. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see which one gets put on the schedule. I know there's been lots of ideas thrown around for 2026, and I think it's a matter of narrowing down the many, many ideas that are possible, which is always tough.
Exactly. And then maybe just another little bit of a tidbit. I think I'm going to look for some speed because I want to join that sub 20 club on the 5K, and I really want to get that 90-minute half. I'm 3 minutes off. So I think getting actually a good speed block in will help for both of those goals, the sub 25K, the sub 90 half, and will translate into that marathon eventually, let's call it. So yeah, I'm very excited for 2026. I think I needed that to close out my season. We're officially closed for business up until we need to hit some stupid mileage goal at the end of 2025. Then she'll open back up for a weekend. But yeah, I think we're packing her in for a little.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, very, very nice. Yeah, I think maybe we'll put a pin in it for this one, or else we could keep going forever and just wrap up your marathon debrief. Again, just huge congrats. Not ideal conditions, and you still, all things considered, finished up that marathon, not fully bonking and just getting across that finish line strong. But I am happy to hear that you've come to the dark side and agreed with me that the bonk is very, very real, and we should all beware of the Bonkosaurus Rex because it's coming for you. Wherever you are, no matter what speed you're running, it's coming for you.
Yeah, you know that I just upped my nutrition plan for the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. That bonk zone I'm gonna try to keep it as far away from me as possible. Well, if you enjoyed this one, please make sure to share this episode with a friend or family member so that you can get them in the Boys in Motion community as well. We've got a lot more race recaps, but luckily enough for you, if you're running Toronto Waterfront Marathon, next week Tuesday, we will be releasing the Toronto Waterfront Marathon kind of warm up. I guess we'll call it the race briefing. Both of you have run Toronto Waterfront Marathon at least once, so you have a ton of knowledge. And Andrew, you're such a vet at this race that you're actually the fastest pacer that will be partaking in the weekend at the 3:05 mark. So make sure you join us next week because that's going to be a wealth of knowledge that'll be shared. And I think, probably the most interested person to hear what you can teach me about that course next week.
Yeah, I can't wait to chat about that. It's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see the performance at hand coming from all the boys and girls in motion at that waterfront marathon. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. And just a reminder, of course, I'm not a coach or a medical pro. I'm just pro at bonking. So if you want to know how to bonk, just hit me up. But anything else, make sure to contact a professional. If you're making changes to your fueling or your training, make sure you do it right.
And just remember, just like Tyler during his marathons, when he's recording these silly videos, keep having fun and keep it moving, because that Bonkosaurus Rex is right around the corner. See you next time on The Boys in Motion.